Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another video on my 5 worst cities and towns in a particular state series. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the worst cities and towns in the state of Washington, my neighboring state. This is a great state in general and has a lot of good cities. It has Vancouver, it has Seattle, it has Kirkland. Well, Seattle maybe not as much now as it was back then, a good city, but it has some great cities and towns in general. However, that is not to say that it's not home to the worst cities and towns in the nation. And that's what I'm here to talk about in this video. Now, there are 2 things you should know about this video. First off, I did not actually visit these cities and towns, but these are based on the research and what I found in other videos talking about the worst cities and towns in the state of Washington. The only cities in the state of Washington I visited are Vancouver, Seattle, Kirkland, and I think we visited a city just north of Vancouver, but that's about it. In this video, I'm mainly doing with the cities and towns based on what I found, based on crime, drug use, high unemployment, and other things that plague bad cities. I've decided to exclude major and popular and metropolitan cities like Seattle and Spokane. In this video, I'm talking about lesser known cities or less popular cities like Tacoma or Yakima, those kinds of cities and towns. With that being said, and without further ado, here are the 5 worst cities and towns in the state of Washington. Number 5, Yakima, Washington. Did you guys watch iCarly as a kid? Remember that one episode where Carly's grandfather decided to make Carly move in with him in Yakima, Washington after seeing her older brother Spencer become irresponsible? And then Carly and Spencer both described Yakima as literally, this name of the city sounds like someone's vomiting. Well, they could not be further from the truth. Yakima is literally like a city that's pretty much all vomit, if you ask me. Yeah, Yakima definitely is not one of the more pleasant cities in the state of Washington. According to Nick Johnson, the city suffers from poverty, drugs, and the crime is more than 2 times higher than the national average. As a matter of fact, Nick Johnson said that Yakima is often referred to as Yak Vegas or Yakima. However, on the bright side, it's definitely not the worst city to live in the state of Washington. It has some decent qualities going forward, and that's why I'm only giving it the number 5 spot, especially when you compare Yakima with the other cities and towns on this list. Number 4, Lakewood, Washington. Nick Johnson definitely wasn't a fan of this. In fact, according to him, Cops, the show, spends a lot of their filming in this area because Lakewood is a very dangerous city. You have 154 chance of falling victim to a violent crime in this area, 7.63 violent crimes per 1,000 people, 38.35 property crimes per 1,000 people, and over 2,807 cases were reported either last year or the year before. Lakewood is definitely a skippable location, even if it does sound or look like a pleasant city. Number 3, Port Angeles. One thing you should know about Port Angeles is that it is a college town, so keep in mind that drug use is going to be common in this town. And that's not all. In order to commute to Port Angeles, you need to take the ferry, making the commute unpleasant. And it doesn't end there. This town was originally built for ailing industries. For those of you who didn't know, ailing means in poor health or in poor condition. I don't know if that's referring to the condition of the industries, as in they were failing, they were doing poorly, or they were falling apart, or if it's referring to the condition of the workplace in those industries. If the workers who worked there lived in poor health, or because the jobs or positions in these industries were poor in terms of workplace conditions and gave their workers poor health. But these are mainly industries like lumber and shipping. Those were the main industries that this town was built upon. On top of that, there are 78 crimes per square mile, and the most common crime is assault. You might think this is a nice sounding town, but honestly, this is just a skippable destination. You best go back to the rest of mainland Washington, or just go to Victoria and British Columbia. This town is not worth your life to visit. Number 2, Aberdeen, Washington. You may know this as the birthplace of grunge music, as well as the most important and influential musical figures in grunge and rock music up to this day, Kurt Cobain. However, besides the fact that this was the birthplace of both grunge and Kurt Cobain, this city, or town I should say, is not very much worth your time. 1 out of 15 residents will suffer from a form of theft. It has the 14th highest property crimes in the state, 7th highest violent crime, as well as the highest unemployment rate and highest drug use, particularly heroin. And it has the lowest number of sunny days. Of course, you can just pass by or visit this town. I mean, maybe if you spend a few seconds there, maybe less than a day, but honestly, probably be best to keep going to Seattle or other places like Spokane. Aberdeen, Washington is, besides the fact that it was the birthplace of both grunge and Cobain, it is not worth much of your time to live in the city or let alone visit the city. Number 1, Tacoma, Washington. You probably saw this coming. If you looked at worst cities or worst towns in the state of Washington, or anything about depressing cities or bad cities on the West Coast or in the United States as a whole, chances are you've come across Tacoma, Washington. In fact, World According to Briggs, one of the most popular YouTubers and one of my most favorite YouTubers who talks about cities and states, listed this as one of the most depressing cities in the U.S. in his list on the top 10 most depressing cities in the U.S. Yeah, and Nick Johnson was not a fan of this place either. In 2016, Nick Johnson did say that Tacoma did have terrible schools and unemployment, and recently it has been reported that you have a 115 chance of being the victim of a violent crime. There are 11,577 property crimes, 1,864 violent crimes, 269 crimes per square mile, and honestly, even though it does have a few good things, including an art scenery, bars, restaurants, and it has been making a turnaround, I would say you best just keep driving, go to Seattle, go to Vancouver in Canada, whatever, go anywhere else, because Tacoma, I mean, other than the fact that it was used for one of the previous Olympics, Tacoma, Washington is not worth your time or money to spend in. I mean, seriously, best just keep driving along. I mean, if World According to Briggs said it went as far as to say that it's one of the most depressing cities in the U.S., you best listen to him. I mean, because he knows more about what he's talking about when it comes to cities or towns than I do or pretty much anyone else. Well, folks, that concludes my 5 worst cities and towns in the state of Washington video. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I hope you stay tuned for more videos from this channel. Click that like and subscribe button, and be sure to check out some of the channels that inspired me: World According to Briggs, Nick Johnson, and From Here to There. Stay tuned for more videos, and as always, stay safe out there.